Are you tired of guessing what's going on in your gut? Well, in this episode, I sit down with Luca Cuccia, CEO of Injoy, to explore how microbiome testing can unlock the secrets to managing IBD and IBS. You'll discover how understanding your gut's unique ecosystem can lead to targeted, effective solutions for better health. So, if you've ever wondered if a microbiome test could be the missing link in your journey to wellness, then you don't want to miss this conversation. Hey friend, welcome to Gut Fix. Are you ready to finally get rid of those debilitating digestive symptoms? Do you catch yourself staying up late Googling things like, what can I eat? Or how do I stop a flare? Or maybe you're just lying awake wondering, how did this ever happen to me? I'm Wendy, and I've been exactly where you are, desperately searching for answers, but determined to find natural solutions. And like you, I was overwhelmed by all the conflicting information out there and unsure of what might really work for me. And so now in this podcast, I'm here to share with you what I've learned, how to listen to your body's signals, and uncover the common mistakes that might be standing in the way of your healing. So grab your favorite drink, pop in your earbuds, and let's dive into your health transformation together. Ready to take your IBD management to the next level? Download my free IBD on the Go guide. It's packed with tips and strategies to help you navigate life with IBD no matter where you are. Just click the link in the show notes below or go to bit.ly/IBD guide. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/IBD guide and get started today. Well, hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Gut Fix. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Luca, who is the CEO of Injoy. It's a microbiome test at-home test that I think you're going to find a lot of good information out of this. So welcome, Luca. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Great. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, Injoy and how it got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my journey really started quite young. I knew I always wanted to be in health. I was actually a pediatric cancer patient when I was
Mm.
5. And as cliche as it might sound, that early experience of having care delivered and working with really great practitioners and that feeling of, comfort in what was a very stressful time, it had a pretty huge impact on me. It led me to work in ambulances, led me to work in science and all these different things throughout my career. But attached to that is also the fact that I had a lot of friends and family dealing with IBD,
Mm.
both Crohn's, both colitis, and witnessed that silent struggle that a lot of them have. It's not something that people typically talk about. It's getting better, but I have family who've had Crohn's for 30 plus years, and I didn't know about it, until relatively recently. Um, and then especially when I dealt with my own inflammation symptoms, where couldn't sleep more than 4 hours a night for several months, skin felt like it was on fire, all these different things. Um, and the whole long list of different tools and treatments that I had to try to finally get to a point of stability just showed that these aren't isolated incidents. And that's really where the motivation to empower people against these, typically unspoken battles comes from, and just educate people on the fact that gut health doesn't live in isolation. It's connected to our immune system, our weight, our mind, what we eat, what we can eat, and so on. That's the big focus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always forever educating on the fact that your gut is really at the center of your health. I mean, it just affects everything. And when it's not running right, it shows up in so many different ways for so many different people. And and so the microbiome test, so that is it's new to me, but because typically I was trained with the GI map, which is a different kind of a test for the gut. So how do these two, how does it differ? How does it differ from the traditional GI map test?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one area that they differ is just the technology that's being used. GI map is using PCR based technology, whereas our test is sequencing based technology.
Mhm.
So that means we're able to look at aspects of how the microbiome is active or inactive in certain degrees, such as capability of breaking down fiber, producing short chain fatty acids, producing vitamins. We can make assumptions around which foods you should be consuming versus not. There's a lot more complexity in the analysis when you can work with sequencing based data.
Mm-hmm.
Then another key component is that we're not just looking at the microbiome in isolation. So through our app, we're able to ask you about really all the relevant aspects of your health. So what you're eating, symptoms you might be experiencing, your lifestyle. And this is a way for us to create a very comprehensive understanding of what's going on with you. And the last key difference is that we're not just looking at one sample. So we actually want to see how your microbiome is changing over time. So typically that looks like sample day 0, sample 5 days later, sample 5 days later. And throughout that period, you're checking in the app. And that's essentially what allows us to build a very personalized profile for you. So deep longitudinal analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a test is a snapshot in time, right? So whatever is happening at that very moment. So I love the idea of testing it over several days just to see, what's actually happening in there. And you mentioned food and food sensitivities. How much of an effect does that have on the test or the individual, I guess?
Right. So we're not a food sensitivity test.
Hmm.
That's definitely something that would require a blood test to get a more comprehensive understanding of. But what we can tell you is which foods you're eating at a summarized level and how they might be causing some of the symptoms you're experiencing. That can
Right.
happen just at the app level. So if we notice if you're eating certain foods and certain symptoms are popping up, we can alert you to that fact. Let's say, hey, we noticed every time you eat beans, your bloating increases, your gas increases, your abdominal pain increases. Be aware of that and consider, reducing it for a period of time, and we can see how that changes. Because a lot of the time, these are things that, chronic issues, people tend to not realize them, especially when they become just your normal. A lot of people don't realize it's abnormal to go to the bathroom, let's say 10 plus times a day. I've had that conversation with people before just because it's been so normal for them for so long. So being able to identify these subtle patterns in your everyday lifestyle, whether it be a dietary focused one, stress focused one, that's something that the app can help. And then in terms of the report, we can let you know, is your diet more inflammatory, pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, and areas of nutrition that you can focus on to support your overall microbiome, moving to a more positive area, if you want to think of it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the app. And so when somebody gets a test, they get access to the app, right? And they download an app and then they can see for themselves real time. Is there somebody that goes over this test result with them, or how does that work?
Yes. So with every test that we send, we give you 3 months access to the app. So you'll be able to test out all their features, such as get gut chat, tracking, food sugar identification, your instructions, all of that. And then once you return your results to you, we're more than happy to review any questions you might have, making sure that it lines up with your practice as well.
Hmm.
Um, you as a practitioner, you're always going to have a better understanding of everyone's extraintestinal issues, their history, and so on. We just make sure that the information coming from the microbiome test is understood perfectly clear on both sides.
Right. Okay, I gotcha. And that too, kind of going on. I know that there's a time frame, the first 1 day, 5 days, and so on for the first test. How often should someone do the test? Like how often should they, is it every 6 months, every year, or as symptoms arise?
Yeah, I mean, the test itself is flexible. We recommend testing every 3 to 6 months, but
Hmm.
we've helped people who are, for example, professional athletes, and they're curious to see, how a specific diet regimen is impacting them because, that extra point one of performance is huge
Oh yeah.
for them. And then we have other people, whether they be in a point of chronic inflammation or diagnosed or undiagnosed, using us as their monitoring tool to understand how is their gut inflammation, for example, prior to some type of more obvious symptomatic arisal. Because within our analysis, one of the key features that we're providing is our gut health score.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what that's doing is comparing your microbiome to a database of 35,000 plus people who have been specifically validated to have IBD. So we can
Okay.
see how similar do you look to someone with active inflammation, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
I gotcha. Okay. So it's not just kind of taking the whole broad spectrum of anybody who's ever done the test before, but it's specifically folks that have IBD or have been
That's
diagnosed with IBD. Yeah.
That's correct. We also provide, several metrics around how diverse is your microbiome, how stable being something unique because of the multiple samples, FB ratio, and so on. So we give general microbiome analysis information as well, in addition to metabolic information and so on.
I gotcha. And specifically, this was I'm assuming from the story and the background of it, it was specifically designed for patients of IBD, Crohn's or colitis. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
And
initially it was completely for people with IBD. When we first started out, one of my co-founders is an IBD patient. I mentioned friends and family.
Mhm.
Pretty much everyone on our team is either a scientist, a patient, or a medical doctor. So we have very deep reasons for wanting to do what we do. But I think what we realized, and as we were saying earlier, is that although it was initially created for the IBD audience, really anyone that's just looking for that answer of what do I do next? Is what
Mhm.
I'm experiencing normal or not? Our test is flexible enough to provide you with that insight. So the microbiome again is far more than just related to our GI symptoms. That
Mhm.
mental and dietary, weight, the immune system connection is one that provides benefit beyond just the IBD group.
Okay. So anybody can take it pretty much
Oh
and
yeah,
benefit from it, not
yeah,
just.
we've had a significant, gradient of people, whether they're diagnosed with a chronic inflammatory condition or an Olympic athlete. So really we can help you regardless of where you are in your journey.
Gotcha. Um, and kind of going backwards a little bit here to the app itself. What would somebody, let's say, that had IBD that was maybe in an active flare, what kinds of advice or tools would they be given from the app? Like what could they glean from the app?
Yeah, so another interesting component is also our bathroom sensor, which works in tandem with our app. So essentially, what the bathroom sensor is doing is recognizing the Bluetooth signal for your phone, because, I mean, honestly, most of us are bringing our phones to our bathroom. Um,
Yeah.
and it's able to recognize how often you're going to the bathroom, how much time you're spending there. So that frequency and time duration becomes an important metric that we're tracking in the app.
hmm
So even as a flare is growing or maybe not initially apparent, the app can notify you, hey, you're spending more time in the restroom than you had previously. It seems like you're having more bathroom trips. Let's just be aware of that. In addition, we have a tool in our app called Gut Chat, where it's actually a database of around 150,000 plus peer-reviewed papers, so academic literature, and you can ask it any question, and it'll provide you with answers from that database of literature and cite you the actual resources that it used. So whatever question you have around microbiome, symptoms, gut health, it can guide you towards resources to educate yourself, as well as recipes, recommendations around supplements, and even just general articles based on areas of interest, which it's able to determine by what you're tracking. So we try and make sure that everything is deeply personalized. It's not just you have this one profile, so you fit in this group, and vice versa. Everything is done at the individual level based on what you're tracking, the questions you're asking, your microbiome, and so on.
That's huge because I think back to, when you, in the beginning, when you were talking about how this all started and how it,
Hmm.
how it became, so many people suffer in silence with this, with IBD or, Crohn's colitis, myself included. I struggled for years. I didn't tell anybody anything. I just kind of figured I would make it go away. And I myself being that person that likes to to do things on my own, just dove into all the information that's out there, and it's very confusing. And you kind of don't know where to go or what's right, what's wrong, and that's, I think, part of the challenge too, is you want to do something proactive, but there's just so much information out there to go through and sift through, and you don't know really where to turn. So I think that's huge with those peer review.
That's the key. There's a lot of information out there, and unfortunately, there's a lot of bad information.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So for us, it was just about giving people confidence in the information they're reading, and just
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we'll provide you with a response, and we'll also provide you directly with the source that it's coming from. Just that full transparency, because ultimately what we're trying to do is make you more confident.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be confident in information, confident about the next step, confident on how to curate a plan for someone that's being provided care. All of that comes from the system that we've created, because like you said, a lot of people suffer in silence. Whatever we can do to shorten that time from initial symptoms, wondering if something is wrong, to confidence in the next step, that's our goal. So it's super important to us from a perspective, because we've been through it ourselves.
Right. It's huge. I mean, I wish this was available when I was going through my struggle.
I hear that a lot, and you do too.
Although, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be here. It had been that easy too. Who knows?
Completely.
Yeah. So, well, what else what else can you tell us about it before we kind of wrap this up, and anything else you want to add, and how can they find out about this? Obviously they can order it through me. I can order that and help with the guidance of it too.
Yeah.
But where could they go to find more information about it, the test?
The best place is really our website. So www.injoy.bio.
Okay.
It helps. Injoy stands for intestinal joy, so as a way to remember it. And there you'll find our blogs. You'll learn more about our tests. You can ask us questions there. We have a version of Gut Chat on our website too, if you'd like to test it out. But ultimately, I think the most important is to understand, gut health is so important. It's far more than just one degree of health. And we believe firmly, and I'm sure you do as well, like having a focus on the gut will provide you with, wellness in so many different areas of your life. Whether you have a medical need for it, or it's, something you're just trying to optimize for every day. So very excited to be supporting your care.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it so very much. It was great to learn more. I learned some things too, even though you and I have chatted a few times before, but I still learned something. So always love learning.
Always
Thanks again. Thanks again for today, Luca. And we'll look forward to more conversations.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Hey, friend. I hope today's episode brought you some real value. If it did, would you take just 30 seconds to share it with a friend who might be struggling to get her gut in check? And if you're feeling extra generous, leave me a review on Apple. It absolutely lights me up knowing that this podcast is making a difference for you. All right, it's time for me to grab my protein shake and get my gut happy. I'll see you back here next Tuesday for another episode of Gut Fix. And until then, stay happy and stay healthy.